Okay, welcome to another Crystal Lake Presents. Our guest today is Christian Douglas, who's the author of the comic Pinochia. I hope I pronounced that right.
Yep.
And I'm going to let him introduce himself, so take it away.
Hello, Anita, and the people from Crystal Lake. Well, my name is Christian Douglas. As Anita just said, I'm the writer and publisher of Pinochia #1, among many other things. I've been writing for 30 years. Started in poetry. I've done short stories. I've done cinema. I've done theater. And lately, my latest venture is comics and animation. It's just about me, right? So that will be me in a nutshell. I'm Spanish. I live in Ireland, and I like to tell stories. That's if you want to summarize myself in a sentence. Like to tell story. That's about it.
Yeah, I think that pretty much summarizes all writers.
Yeah.
so, so how did you get started with the comic creation?
Something about like 12 years ago, I was in a period I wasn't doing anything. I got out of doing theater after many years, after having my own theater company and all that. So I was like out of the game for a while. And a friend of mine had me a copy of a comic and said, "Oh, maybe you should look into doing something like this. You like to write, and this is looks like something fun." I have this bias with comics, comics are for kids, stuff like that. But I tell me, no, you should read. Things have changed a lot since the last time you read a comic, back in the 80s. And he gave me Dark Knight, and that's how I say, okay, oh, comics are a different thing now. Okay, so you can go places, and it's an art form at the end of the day. And that then took me to other like Sandman, and especially Sandman. That was the moment I say, okay, oh, okay, this is an art form, and this can be whatever the writer and the artist wants it to be. It
Mm,
can be entertainment, it can be uh, deep thoughts, it can be reflection, it can be poetry, it can be whatever you want it to be, education. So it's just an art form. And that's how I started. So I wrote the first of the popular comics, because they do have this whole idea, this whole arc of revisiting the classical folk tales with a 21st century spin. And I did Red Riding Hood. I tried to shop it around for like a year, almost 2 years. I sent it to all the publishers in the planet, and everybody rejected it for a different reason. Somebody didn't like the cover, or somebody didn't like the artist, or they should be longer, they should be shorter, or blah blah blah, or you should change this, or you should change that. So at the end of the day, I just like, okay, I do it myself. I did it through crowdfunding 10 years ago. This is the 10-year anniversary, 2014. Back when crowdfunding was not cool, when everybody thought we were just beggars and nobody was doing it. And were you poor? Why you not find a publisher? And since then, we have been publishing. This is the Pinocchio is my seventh book, the fourth in the studio that we formed afterwards. And that copy, for example, that was rejected, we have sold more than 2,000 copies of that book, which is nothing easy in the indie world. It's
yeah.
complicated. So we're very proud of that. And at the end of the day, you just have to, if you believe in yourself and you think you can do it, especially nowadays with all the technology there is, you don't really need anybody. You just need to
Yeah.
have a good product. You need to just have good marketing and good distribution. That's it. You don't need
Yeah.
anybody else.
Yeah, definitely things have changed, especially the crowdfunding. I mean, crowdfunding is pretty much the go-to these days for independent comics, I think.
Yeah, no, not only for an independent comic, for everyone,
Yeah.
really. Like Keanu Reeves is doing crowdfunding,
Mm, yeah. Well, I,
literally.
I I think Brandon Sanderson pretty much killed the stigma on the crowdfunding with
Correct.
his.
So there's like really these really big names, big name, huge. I don't know what to do in the crowdfunding sphere, but whatever. But so it's mainstream now. Now Boom is doing crowdfunding, DC is doing crowdfunding, everybody's doing crowdfunding nowadays, because it just they realize that it's just a perfect marketing tool, a very cheap marketing tool to really test a product out. So if to really know how much people are gonna buy it, and to really know how many copies you need to print of X or Y. So you avoid, going crazy or having to throw away things, or because people have to pay upfront. So
Yeah,
it's really a fantastic tool to really measure the scope and the legs of any product, not only comics, anything, novels or movies or short films or technology objects, or it's just a finance tool and a marketing tool. The crowdfunding is what it is.
definitely. So tell us a little bit about Pinocchio. What's the premise?
The whole idea is, as I mentioned before, the popular tales is classical folk tales, 21st century. So the classical folk tales obvious is Pinocchio, and the 21st century spin on it is AI, artificial intelligence, robots, and all that. Like, so it's a post-apocalyptic future in which Geppetto is a grandchild of the war that we have the machines in which we lost, and in order to try to establish some, mainly to like a Hail Mary, to save the few humans that are still escaping and hiding from machines, he builds this robot who can look like a little girl. Also, that's not showing the first number, but it will be shown in the second and the third. She has this technology that has the skin that kind of looks like a little girl, so she's a robot that kind of pass like a human being too, in order to try to be some balance between these two camps. So that's the premise, in a nutshell.
Nice. So what kind of themes are you trying to explore with the comic?
Mainly is like identity, what makes us humans, what meant to be, what makes something to be alive, to have conscience. Can objects, because at the end of the day, a machine, a robot, a computer, whatever you want to call it, is an object. So, what point this object becomes a thing that is alive, or what point it becomes has conscience, what points can have rights, what point that we have to treat it differently. All those, the scope of technology within our society, and how can we be used for good, but how can also be used for terrible things. So it has a lot of things behind it, identity and, and belonging and community, and it's a lot of things behind it. So yeah, it's not one that you can pick up. That's the most important one. I think that all of them are kind of in the same realm, in the same scope. So all of those are relevant, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a little bit about the dystopian world you created in the comic.
As I mentioned before, is after the war with the machines. So this is like two generations after the war with the machine that we have lost. There are only two camps that of humans that are still surviving and that are hidden, and the machines don't really know where they are because they're in a very specific, complicated place for the machines to reach. One is like inside a volcano in a mountain, and the other one is underwater. And the rest of the humans and are nomads, and the machine has this big city called O1, and it has like posts around all the planet in order to monitorize and keep and pay attention in case humans are up to something, and mainly for resources for them. And that's about the world. You have there are a lot of things that will be explained with time, and that, for example, the story starts in a dumpster. That's where Geppetto builds her, and this dumpster is like a kind of like a safe place for robots who want to be involved in the war, who don't want to hunt humans, who don't want to be part of that organization, and just are there like, I don't say pariahs, but just wanted to be left alone. So there's a lot of things like that that are groups of robots that are out of control, that are not within the organization of the machines, who just hunt humans for sport. So there's a lot of different groups populating the earth, with their own agendas and their own MOs, and with their own backgrounds and history. So those will be explained as we progress with the comics, for sure.
Okay, so what is it about the dystopian idea that appeals to you as a writer?
Well, I think it was a good way to talk about the themes that we mentioned before, like identity, technology, what to what extent technology is a tool or is a weapon, or it can save us, it can destroy us at the same time. So all that's the perfect realm for science fiction and cyberpunk and all that jazz, because that each of the unpopular tales a different genre. For example, the first one, the Pinocchio, the Red Riding Hood, sorry, is risque and erotica, and the next one we're gonna do most probably is gonna be noir. So I think that each of the classical folk tales I see in a specific genre, and for Pinocchio was a no-brainer because it's an ultimate puppet, is the ultimate. So was more than a puppet than a machine, than a robot that can be programmed to do X or Y or Z. And then that machine, after he gains conscience and realizes that, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this, or maybe I should adapt that. So it's a perfect uh, channel for go through all those different topics and ideas and reflections. So yeah, that's why that science fiction, cyberpunk, and dystopian futures were really a very a no-brainer, I would say, a place to
Right.
to set up that story.
So, you said you've written in multiple genres for this, and you're going to continue to do that. Do you
Yeah.
have a favorite genre, or do you kind of have your own? Each one has its own appeal.
No, I don't think I have a favorite genre because it's like kind of like movies. Like I just enjoy good stories. I don't want to. I don't like as an spectator first, and also as a writer, to put myself in a box. I just like this, and I'm only gonna enjoy this, and then everything else is No, it's just like music, or why you limit yourself to to one thing when you have 300 things. And I think that we as a species, we are created to explore, to see, to reach, to move, to see things, to touch things, to experience things. So why are you gonna put yourself in a box? It's a little bit, I don't see it as productive at all. So I think that all of them well done, all of them have their own appeal. You have for example, I don't know, Psycho for horror, and then you have um, Dunkirk for history, or you have 2001 for science fiction. So all those are masterpieces. All
Mm,
are different genres, all are different directors, all are different visions. So why you wanna? Oh, I just wanna do this. Oh, I just wanna do that. Why? That's just limiting yourself as a creator and also as an spectator, because then you're losing a lot of things that you're not really paying any attention because you just want to be focused on one thing. I remember that I met a very famous musician many years ago, and he told me that he only discriminate two types of music: the one that is done with passion and with technique um, and with um, a clear goal, and then one that is just done for nothing, just like a fast food or whatever. It's just easy consumption, fast consumption. And those are the two type of music for him. That for him, they were not really genres, like, oh, this is folk, or this is rock and roll. No, it's just, hey, these people, they want to say something, they have they're subscribed to this kind of like mood. That's it. This is good. This makes sense. So yeah, it's good. It's valid. It's just something. You're just copying something, or they just want to be famous or whatever. Okay, then that's irrelevant. And they're not really creators. It's just people who do things to be noticed. And I think I kind of agree with him. Like, hey, if you if you want to create, try to move in as many places as you can. The whole idea, as we mentioned before, the writers, we just want to tell stories. For me, it's irrelevant if it's comics or if it's because I've done it kind of all. If it's comic, or if it's cinema, or if it's animation with a video game. At the end, it's just telling a story. What changes is the specifics of the genre and also of the medium. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing.
Yep,
The same thing.
definitely. So, what's the hardest part of writing for you, and what are your writing challenges?
For me, writing is not hard. For me, it's everything else that is hard, like promoting and getting it out there and getting an agent or a distributor or printing or marketing or going to the places or reaching the press. So for me, that's the hard part. Writing is easy, quote
Yeah,
unquote easy.
yeah, 90% of writers would agree with you on that
I
one.
don't have that. I'm always amazed by these things of writer's block. I've never had that in my life ever. There are moments that I just don't want to write,
Mm,
but that's not writer's block. I decide not to. Today I want to do something else because you also have to live. But I never have any issue with writing. It's true that I've been doing it for many years, so that helps a lot. So it's just like a muscle. You have already trained it, so you don't have issues with it. And if you have, I don't know, a blank space or something that you don't know how to do, that's when you do research. You read, you ask people around. That's part of also fun because
mm,
you discover things that you didn't know before. So I don't have any. Again, me, I know people are different, but writing for me is not a big problem, really. It just comes natural after doing it for so many years. It becomes something like, yeah, just know how to. I know how to create characters. I know how to create plot. I know how to do dialogue. I know how to do create the worlds. I know how to develop plot points. So it's not complicated.
yeah. So, what do you enjoy most about writing?
Why you about that you can control everything, that you are this little god with your sandbox and you play around and you create characters and they don't know that what's going to happen to them, but and you control all that. That's a fantastic feeling. And that's one part. And the second part, when you have that and you see it when it comes alive, when it leaves your head, leaves the page and you see it, I don't know, in a comic and a strip, or you see it on stage, or you see it on the screen, then it's an incredible, fulfilling experience, even if you don't direct it, if you don't adapt it, so this thing came alive. This thing that I have, that I thought 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, now it's a thing. Now it's alive. Now people see it. Now people can critique it. Now people can like it or love it or hate it or whatever. But it's a thing. So you have created something. That for me is the greatest reward
Mm,
when writing. To make it become alive, to make it to give it birth and give it to the world.
yeah, definitely a great feeling. So, what are some of the challenges? I mean, you touched on this a little bit that you've had to overcome in your writing life.
Mainly, as I mentioned before, is just to get it things out there. That's for me the greatest challenge that any writer has. Even if you have an agent or if you have a publisher, you still need to go places, shake hands, play nice, answer the same questions 300 times with a smile on your face. And so, but it's part of the game. It's part of the game, and talk to people, and because I'm not, contrary to a lot of people believe, I'm not an extrovert at all, like zero. The thing is that with many years of training, as I mentioned before, I did theater, so I just created these characters of this guy that goes out there and talks. But I would like to be like Salinger, like not who to do any interviews. I don't talk with anybody. I don't care. I just do the book and you sell it. You do it, everything. I don't want to deal with anybody. That will be for me will be the ideal life. But I live in the 21st century and I know that's very complicated, almost impossible to do. So
Yeah.
to create this other guy for for the part that you need. You need to go. You need to go. You need to promote. You need to talk to people. People need to see you. You need to be places. You need to travel. You need to so. That for me is the hardest part. I see it. It's like pushing the thing, you know. And
Yeah, I think
I think yeah. Sorry, I interrupt you.
I was gonna say, I think a lot of writers would agree with you. They'd rather just sit home and let someone else do the marketing.
Yeah, and I don't mind. I kind of now when I learn how to do it, I trying to get now it's a little bit like a game. But at the beginning was horrific, 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 because you spend a lot of time doing things you shouldn't be doing, or you didn't know what you were doing, or you spend money on time on things you should have been spending money on time on. So it's a huge learning curve. So and the thing is that that is on top of creating the whole, as I mentioned before, on top of the your work, quote unquote. Then you need to have this extra layer of everything else. That is a big layer. You know, it's a big layer, especially if you don't want to work the traditional route, quote unquote, through agent, through publisher, to distributor. Like you want to be an independent creator, you want to have your own studio, your own publishing house. Then it's a huge mountain you have to climb. And yeah, and the thing is that they change the pose from time to time. On the mountain is different now, and then now there's a river, and now there's a valley, and you thought it's gonna be up, now it's down, and you thought it's so it's you need to have a special chip in order
Yeah.
to cope with that, for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely for sure. So, how do you create your characters? Did they begin as a name, an idea, or did they start talking to you fully formed?
I normally start with images. That's how I start with any book. I start with images, so I see things. Okay, oh, I see this. Oh, this is gonna happen. This is gonna happen, and from there I create what is called in theater we used to call it like the skeleton of the scene. So the skeleton of the scene is what happens. Like character A says this or does this, character B reacts, or character C enters. So I do that, and then from there I start to, okay, so who are these people doing these things? And then I sit down. Okay, this is the main character. This is the secondary character. This character is for this character is for that. This character is for this. And then after that I create the whole plot line of the whole thing, and then it's when I sit down and write. Like, okay, I have all this work. I like to do a lot of prep work before I just start typing. So and then the fun part is that when you start typing, things maybe change, and what you thought was going to be one way doesn't make sense, or you don't like it, or the characters have evolved in a certain way that doesn't make sense, so you need to change stuff. I remember that it's something that we did a lot in the theater, you know. And when you got the script, and when you started rehearsing, when you started like um, uh, put it, the thing on the surface, a lot of things need to be changed and need to be corrected, because there was no rhythm, there was no action, there was no, the thing didn't flow as it should flow. And it's the same with writing. So you have all this prep work that you did that you think is gonna go this way, but sometimes it doesn't go this way. Sometimes it go the other way. Sometimes you need to change thing or adapt thing or cut or rewrite or yeah. So so yeah.
Yeah, I don't think any of my plotting outlines have ever stayed the same after I've started writing. They always change.
Yeah, no, it's also it's a part of the process. You know, if it just
Yeah,
was just input output, press a button, then a machine will do it. You know, so that's the fun part. I think it's like to experiment and see where things get you, and see. Okay, so I think this was gonna be the end of this character, but I say, well maybe, or the opposite, or maybe I want to kill it in the first 2 pages, because, and then I just go back and I tell the story based on another person. So it's a lot of, you need you play with it. You know, that's why we have drafts and second drafts and third drafts and fourth draft and rewriting, and it's just because of that. Because what you thought was a good idea last week, maybe it's not a good idea this week or in 2 months. So
yeah.
part of the fun of the thing, you know, for sure.
Okay, so do you have a favorite writer or writing inspiration?
Do I have a favorite writer? I have many favorite writers. Inspiration for me, the my greatest inspiration is Charles Dickens because he was the first professional writer in history. So that's the first guy who didn't need a king or a duke or whatever to sponsor him. He was the first writer who made a living out of his writing in history because he wrote for the newspapers. So and he was one of the first guys who did cliffhangers, and that's why if you read any novel of his,
Mm,
every like chapter always like, oh, what's gonna happen with this character? What happened? Because of course the newspapers were not published all at the same time, so it's like this is for this week, then next week, like tune in for next week. So he kind of invented that in the 19th century. So
yeah,
kudos to the guy, you know.
yeah, he
So
definitely was the first one to do first ones to do serial fiction. Yeah, that's why his novels are generally so long because he got paid by the words.
correct, correct. And also he another thing that I love about his writing is that he and something I aspired to do to a certain extent. He wrote many layers. So you have a thing for the kids because normally those times most people didn't know how to read. So normally it was the man, the father who read aloud to the kids and to the wife. So there was something for the wife, something for the kids, something for the father, something for the editor of the newspaper, something for the other writer. So you always have this all layers and levels of writing, and that's really hard to do, you know, especially good. And that's why he still
Yep,
lives out today, you know. That's why he's a classic. That's why he has museums and theses wrote about his work, because the guy was good and he knew
yep.
what he was doing, and he wrote a lot.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So what do you
but I
like to
admire a
do?
lot of writers. I like Stephen King. I like Chuck Palahniuk. I like many. As I said before, the Gaiman is a good one of my inspirations as a comic book writer. I like Frank Miller. I like Alan Moore, Jason Aaron. I have a big list of people that I like to read. You know, because that's something that's important. If you want to be a writer, you have to be first a good reader. That's like part of the job. Nobody is a good writer just by the goodwill of God or whatever, by osmosis or by divine nature. You know? You first, you are a good reader first, and then you become to write first afterwards. But first, good reader.
Yeah, definitely need to be a reader if you're going to be a writer. So
Yep.
yeah. So what do you like to do when you're not writing? Do you have any hobbies?
I do coloring books. It's something I discovered some years ago when doing conventions, because I mentioned before I get really anxious in places where there's a lot of people, there's a lot of interaction, and if you've been in conventions before, but you know there's a lot of time, there's to have that time. So what do I do? So I discovered like coloring, and it's something that relaxes me because
Mm,
it's a true hobby for me, because I'm not thinking of anything. What's the end goal? The one that's gonna go to do with this after? No, no, just like I immerse in that. I do mandalas or whatever that you can coloring. I do it. It's something that it's one of my hobbies for sure.
yeah.
And photography, I would have to say, yeah, those two.
What do you use when you're coloring? Do you use colored pencils or markers or
I
is
use
I'm an
everything.
artist.
Sometimes I use markers. Sometimes I use crayons. Sometimes I use just pens. Depends on what I have on the moment. But yeah, normally I like to use the markers that have the two tips. The
Mm.
one that looks like an easel, and so as an easel, as the name of this,
Chisel
as
nib?
yeah, as a pencil, like you know what you use it for the easel for watercolors, like
Yeah,
that. And the other one that's like it's very straight, very narrow, very focused, so you can use. So you have the both, but the best of both worlds at the same time. So you can have something that diffuminates and something that goes very to the point. So that's like my favorite ones. But I have a lot.
yeah,
As a hobby, so I buy a lot of them and I just use them for that, just out of pleasure, not I don't
Yeah.
want to be an artist. I don't want to be. I admire a lot of people who draw and all that. So I just make it for fun. I like to concentrate on my writing. And and I think that's one of the best things of comics is a collaborative work, and it's always at least two people. It's very complicated. I never seen it. I haven't seen it that many times. It's like a person that is a complete artist that is good in both worlds. It's hard. Some artists they think they're good writers, but no. And some writers they think they're good artists, but not really. Normally, the thing with the artist is that it's more complicated to spot. If you're a good artist, you can disguise things more, and people are more attracted because of the nature of the medium. But it's very complicated to be good in both things at the same time. That's and I kind of like I'm a little bit suspicious of things people who do both, because you kind of like neglecting one by doing the other, and vice versa, you know. So I would say stick to your lane, become better at it. I don't say don't do it, but don't think you are, oh, I'm just so good, I'm the best in writing and the best in inking and coloring. I don't know, just hey, this is something that's been invented for almost 200 years in this industry. So the wheel's already invented, dude. So just like it works. Love that American saying, if it's not broken, why you fixing it? So I kind of totally believe that's the way to go in everything. You know, like specialize in your thing. I don't say not look at the other ones, but because yeah, you need to know spot what is good, what is not good, what is good coloring, what's not good coloring, especially when you're editing and you are publisher too. You need to be aware of that, but you don't need to do it everything.
Yeah.
That's nobody does everything. That's very few people in history who have done everything good. You know, the same thing with actors, that directors, and also that producers. And if you're doing something, do something. Don't try to have a lot of pots at the same time. My grandma used to tell me all this time, like you have several pots at the same time, one is gonna burn. So just focus on one and do it good, and then you can start with the second one. The whole thing idea of multitasking is a lot of BS. It's not for human beings.
Yeah, definitely can get tiring and you're doing that all right. So, what's your next project? Do you have any secrets you care to share with the audience?
Yeah, we have we have this is gonna be a four number series. So we have Pinochia 2 coming hopefully by the end of the year, early next year. We also have the second volume of Punk Droid. That's an anthology we did last year. That's Cyberpunk. It's gonna be at least 10, 12 stories like last time. And I'm also already working on the third Unpopular Tales. I have written like 8 already, so I'm kind of decided which is gonna be the next one. It's gonna be fantasy, it's gonna be noir, it's gonna be horror. So I'm kind of like battle against it and asking the people in my newsletter, hey, what do you think is the best way to go? You know, but yeah, always trying to do other stuff. We also working on a short film based on one of the comics that we already published. So yes, a lot of things coming down the pipeline. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, sounds like we have a lot to look forward to. So, I think we'll wrap the interview up here. And I'd like to thank you for being a guest today. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Pleasure to talking to you, Anita. It's been a pleasure to having been your program and being able to talk to your followers. So always delighted to be here for sure. Thank
Yeah,
you for the
and
opportunity.
yeah, and you can check out the Pinocchio links in the description. So that's it for this episode, and bye for now.